citoyens. Je crois qu'aujourd'hui, il faut non seulement parler, bien entendu, au cœur, mais il faut aussi parler au cerveau. Et pour parler au cerveau, à la raison, il faut du temps. La difficulté avec les populistes, c'est qu'ils parlent au tripes. Voilà. Et que quand on parle au tripes, voilà, il y a une réaction immédiate. Mais il y a autant de neurones dans l'estomac que dans le cerveau. Donc attention. Et souvent, c'est l'estomac qui commande le cerveau. Donc il faut effectivement que nous ayons une communication qui ne se fasse pas à l'instant et qui se fasse dans la durée. Et pour ça, il faut bien entendu qu'il y ait une communication européenne qui parle des valeurs, qui parle des fondements de l'Europe. Pourquoi l'Europe? Pourquoi on ne peut pas faire des choses isolément, mais pourquoi il faut les faire de façon globale? C'est la politique de cohésion territoriale, c'est la politique d'aide à la recherche, c'est la politique d'investissement coordonné. Mais il faut aussi qu'il y ait, bien entendu, j'allais dire, ces frappes aériennes, mais il faut aussi qu'il y ait les troupes au sol, et nous sommes les troupes au sol. À la fois les collectivités locales, à la fois les réseaux Europe Direct, à la fois les médias locaux, et je pense qu'il faut mettre en mouvement pendant 5 ans l'ensemble de ces forces qui vont pouvoir passer un message en expliquant concrètement pourquoi l'Europe, ce que fait l'Europe, et comment change l'Europe. Et moi je vois bien en tant que maire aujourd'hui, les gens surtout ont envie d'être écoutés, qu'on écoute leurs souffrances, et qu'on fasse appel à leur raison, à leur raisonnement, et que leur apporte bien entendu des solutions concrètes, mais pas des solutions simplistes, parce qu'ils savent fond de même que les solutions simplistes n'apportent pas de solutions durables.
Okay, maybe we take that communication strategy, and I'll ask all of you again for your views, and then it would be great to involve some of you here as well in that debate. Just in terms of creating then a communications strategy, Mairead McGuinness, as Vice President, one of your tasks now actually is to be involved in communications with the European Parliament. How do you do that? And what are you communicating? Is it what the institutions do? Is it what the Parliament does? The Commission? What is the message?
Well, I hope that this Parliament will work better with the Commission and Council, and certainly that's one of the things that I'm charging myself to do, that we coordinate better. I mean, sometimes you hear of an announcement that's made 10 times between various institutions, and goodness me, 10 different MEPs or 100 MEPs, and people wonder, what exactly was this piece of legislation about? So I think we could perhaps do less, and I keep saying this, and do it better. So that's the first charge that I'm responsible to giving myself for this future 5 years, to work better with the institutions. But look, beyond that, I mean, there's a bit of negativity here, and I'm not for negative, to be honest, because we have backed all the good bits of Europe. We've taken them on board. If you look at issues, and I visited a lovely school in Ireland on Monday before I travelled out, and you look at initiatives around environmental protection, around awareness of the European Union, we have huge initiatives there, around the digital agenda. I had a 4-year-old that I interviewed, and she was fantastic. I had an 11-year-old who talked about Europe with passion, because they understood from the communication that the school had made with them. So I think we need, as well as taking on the challenges of what's wrong, we need to continuously have an undercurrent about what works, about how we have actually a better environment because of the European Union, how women have a better place in society because of the European Union, how we have freedom to move, how the currency gives us that flexibility, how the companies in our countries can trade with each other. Let's not stop talking about what's working, as well as fixing what doesn't. In terms of a strategy, I think we have an opportunity, not in weeks, but over 5 years, to work more. Yeah, I like the idea of the heart and the mind and the gut. I think the gut is the one that you know, really impressed by your line about the gut is where people, you know, get. And populism, I'm afraid, is a gut reaction, and people get it. And I would hope that those of us who are more to the centre would realise that the last thing we should do is run in that direction. You know, I have good gut reactions to things, and I use that in my judgments, but I don't want just to appeal to people's gut, and I don't think they do either. I think people deserve better. It is easy to come up with glib solutions and one-liners and get headlines, but it behoves those of us who are in politics for the longer term and who have a vision to talk to people about the actuality, which is much more complicated. So, let's talk about what works. Let's focus on what is not. Let the institutions do less. and do it better. My hope for us as a Parliament, for example, is that we have less legislation and that we do it better, and we also review what's currently on the books and say, well, you know, we don't need that, that's not working. It's against solidarity or subsidiarity, let's remove it. So the next 5 years, in my view, are a period of retrenchment rather than expansion in terms of legislation, of getting people to understand why we have certain things in place. And again, I go back to my initial comments. This time it was difficult. It was always going to be difficult, and anyone who was surprised about that really wasn't awake for the last 5 years. We have an opportunity to turn difficulty into opportunity, and that's the challenge of this conference. And I'm here to as much participate as to soak up some of your good ideas as to how we do that.
Okay, Mr. Gozi, maybe a brief comment before we take the other views. Your idea of the communication strategy?
Well, I go back to the distinction between institutional communication and political communication. I do agree that institutional communication can require a legislature 5 years, because you have to prepare the ground, because you have to explain how it works, because certain things take a certain time, who does what. Very good. Political communication is something else to me. It's something that I again talk to the heart, doesn't talk to the mind, and time runs very fast in political communication today. We are in the time of social network. We are in the era of immediate reaction. So you have to react immediately, even to populism, and you must know how to react immediately to populism. You cannot wait 3 years to react to something that hit the perspective and probably the vote and probably the positioning of a group of people, of European citizens. You cannot wait to prepare the ground. You have to change, and this is the problem for Europe, because Europe has done quite well institutional communication. The problem that it comes across like quite ordinary, trivial communication, and that Europe hasn't managed to promote the real political communication, which is linked to politics and which is linked also to conflict. Because when you have a political conflict, you can have also an easier communication. The problem that European politics has tend also to is much more consensual than the national politics, and it wants to appear, but sometimes even more consensual than actually it is. And probably we should work on that, because when you have a positive democratic political conflict, that helps people understand, and that helps also to communicate. Last point, it is the problem that we are talking, when we talk about values and needs, we talk about things which are almost 99% transnational. The problem that politics has remained mainly national, and therefore communication, political communication has remained mainly national. And if we don't manage to build up a transnational politics, starting from the European Parliament, starting from the work that the MEP do in the political groups, starting from creating real European political parties. Today we got confederation of national parties. We don't have truly political European actors. Well, if we don't, until we don't manage to do that, we will have also always a gap between issues that can be solved only at least at European level, sometimes at European level, at everything at transnational, environment, immigration, security, terrorism, and a debate and a political action which is prisoned in strict, narrow national borders. That's something that we have to fight, both political actors and communication.
Okay, perhaps Jane Morrice, your views on that?
Thank you, and I'll take the line of yes, being positive. I think it's very useful to focus on the positive. I'd like to look at 4 areas: education, branding, division of labour, to take Herman Van Rompuy's point this morning, and own resources. If you think of someone like Shakespeare or Cervantes, or we don't know them because they're around every day. We learn about them in school. We don't learn about the European Union in school, certainly not in the British Isles as far as I'm aware. But there, we need education, number 1, and that's desperately needed. Number 2 is the brand. Now everyone quotes Coca-Cola. But you know, Coca-Cola does it, has it right. Our brand, if I walk up to a road or a roundabout or a training program, it's either funded by the European Regional Development Fund or funded by something else or some other competitiveness and employment. But all we need to know is it's funded by the European Union. Why do we need to have each different brand for each different thing? And that moves me on to the division of labour. Because yes, there's absolutely no doubt that the member states need to take ownership of Europe and defend it and support it. But also within Brussels, there's a division of labour that I think is doing more harm than good. And that's the division of labour between the Parliament, the Committee of the Regions, the Economic and Social Committee, the Council. That labour needs to be brought together, and we need to work together on that. And I think we should learn from that, from this panel, that we should be working far, far more to brand Europe and make it more simple. And my last thing is using own resources. Thank you. The last thing is own resources, and that's something we are very bad at. And I'll take another example, Erasmus. I think I told you last time I was here, I did Erasmus, didn't realise that it was it when I was in 1976, and my son did it last year. But nobody connects the Erasmus students. You've got thousands, hundreds, thousands of students who get money from us to do Erasmus, and they love it, and they can sell the story, but nobody taps into it. Nobody uses them as ambassadors. They're just left to wander off and maybe join a Facebook or a Twitter, but nobody uses it. People don't use us in the committee of the Economic and Social Committee, Committee of the Regions, European. How many people actually write letters to their members of the European Parliament and say, we want you to do this for us, we want you to do that for us? We've got to use these resources much, much more, and we don't. So those are my 4 things: education, resources, division of labour, and branding. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Maybe final words to you, Monsieur Rouillon, before we open it out to the floor.
Je suis aussi d'accord sur le fait que l'Europe, c'est pas simplement le point de croissance, c'est aussi ça, bien entendu. C'est ce que les gens attendent, mais ce sont aussi des valeurs. Il faut absolument que nous utilisions tous les moyens pour communiquer sur les valeurs. Et le premier moyen, c'est le billet de banque. Hier, le billet de 10 €, ma boulangère me l'a donné, elle m'a dit, moi je trouve qu'il est moche. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il n'est pas humain. Il y a des ponts dessus, et il devrait y avoir les figures de l'Europe dont on a parlé tout à l'heure. Il devrait y avoir Chopin, Cervantes, Mozart, Descartes, des gens qui incarnent les fondements de notre Europe. Et puis aussi, je pense qu'il faut travailler sur un récit de l'Europe avec des clips, avec des bandes dessinées, avec des choses qui soient, qui donnent un petit peu d'humanité à notre construction, qui apparaît comme trop technocratique. Et je voudrais aussi insister sur un point. On parle à des êtres humains, on parle à la boulangère d'Argenton-sur-Creuse, on ne parle pas des stakeholders. Et quand vous avez des documents de l'Union européenne déclic qui sont en anglais, c'est incompréhensible pour nos concitoyens, c'est zappé immédiatement. Donc il faut aussi qu'il y ait le multilinguisme, que les documents de communication soient dans toutes les langues qui font la richesse de notre continent. Alors 2 points, moi je pense qu'il faut d'abord écouter nos concitoyens, mettre en place des instruments de l'écoute. Il faut que les commissaires européens et les institutions sortent de leur tour d'ivoire. Nous plaidons pour que chaque commissaire européen, chaque région soit visitée par un commissaire européen chaque année. Nous plaidons pour qu'il y ait 500 dialogues citoyens chaque année avec les parlementaires européens, les élus locaux, les syndicats, les organisations patronales, les députés européens, tous ceux qui font l'Europe, mais pas simplement dans les grandes capitales, mais avec les citoyens sur les points chauds. Il faut aller à Florence, il faut aller à Lampedusa, il faut aller dans des endroits où il y a des vrais sujets, dans les endroits où les agriculteurs souffrent, par exemple, de la politique qui est menée actuellement, des conséquences de l'embargo russe sur un certain nombre de produits agricoles. Il faut aller partout où là ça fait mal pour expliquer l'Europe. Et il faut aussi décentraliser. C'est pourquoi nous plaidons pour que 20% du budget de la communication de l'Union européenne, aux alentours de 100 millions d'euros, soit décentralisé au plan local pour que nous ayons une communication ciblée auprès de nos concitoyens par le biais à la fois de partenariats stratégiques par les villes et les régions avec des moyens financiers, également par l'ensemble du réseau d'Europe Direct qui travaille aujourd'hui avec 3000 ficelles et qui pourrait appuyer notre action au plan local. Il faut aussi travailler avec les médias locaux, les journaux locaux, les télévisions locales, les radios locales qui sont très écoutées, qui parlent à nos concitoyens tout au long de l'année et de façon audible et crédible en direction des populations jeunes, en direction des populations des banlieues, des populations périurbaines aussi qui sont les plus eurosceptiques. Et je pense que plus largement, il faudrait que l'on ait un réseau des villes amies de l'Europe. Dans mon avis du comité européen, reconnecter l'Europe avec les citoyens, j'ai parlé de 5000, mais ce serait qu'un début, qui soient nos relais sur le terrain, en utilisant des moyens de communication diffusés par l'Union européenne, des documents précuits peut-être, utilisables sur tous nos documents de communication locaux, les journaux municipaux, les sites internet, les réseaux sociaux locaux, qui serait une façon de démultiplier le message de l'Union européenne sur chacun des territoires. Et enfin, pour finir, je pense qu'il faut aussi une formation. Il faut que ceux qui vivent l'Europe au quotidien, les chargés de mission, les collaborateurs d'administration, les journalistes locaux viennent ici à Bruxelles pour comprendre comment fonctionne l'Europe, parce qu'on méprise ce que l'on ne comprend pas. Et je pense qu'une des grandes difficultés aujourd'hui, c'est que nos concitoyens sur le terrain ne comprennent pas comment se fait la décision européenne et ne comprennent pas pourquoi il y a l'Europe et qu'est-ce que fait l'Europe sur le terrain tous les jours.
Okay, a lot of suggestions there. I think it might be very interesting at this stage to take either some questions or your views, maybe your views on the practicalities of particularly Monsieur Rouillon's suggestions for those of you who may be involved in communicating European Union news or issues or whatever. How practical are those suggestions? Are they feasible? If you would like to ask a question or to make a comment on that, then we would love to hear from you. Just raise your hands, and the microphones are in front of you. We've plenty of questions to be getting on with. Oh, very good.